The sun dipped low over Lake Tahoe, turning the water into molten gold. From the deck of a gleaming yacht, I should have felt at peace. 70 years old, wrapped in my teal silk shawl, I thought I was being treated to a family celebration. My son, no, my adopted son, Caleb Whitfield, stood at my side, all smiles. His hand rested gently on my shoulder, the way you'd expect from a grateful child. "Mom," he said, voice smooth as honey, "just the three of us tonight, a toast to family." Family, the word burned, because the way his wife, Sabrina, was looking at me didn't feel like family. Her smile was sharp, like glass about to cut skin. She raised her champagne flute, leaned close enough for me to smell the jasmine on her perfume, and whispered, so soft it was almost a hiss, "Say hello to the deep, Eleanor." Before I could even gasp, her hand pressed lightly, deliberately against my back. The glass slipped from my fingers, shattering against the deck. My body tipped forward, and then the world became nothing but water and silence. As the icy lake swallowed me, one last image seared into my mind. Caleb, the boy I had raised as my own, standing there with his arm around her, his lips curling into a smile I had never seen before. "Now," I heard him say faintly above the crashing waves, "now the fortune is finally ours." The water was black ice against my skin. It burned my lungs, pressed against my chest, dragged me down like an anchor tied to my heart. I kicked, I clawed, I gasped for air until my body betrayed me. My hip, the one still tender from surgery, screamed with every desperate movement. I wasn't just drowning in Lake Tahoe. I was drowning in betrayal. Through the blur of bubbles, memories hit me harder than the water itself. Caleb, age 10, running into my arms the first day I brought him home from the orphanage, his small hand clinging to mine when I promised him he'd never be abandoned again. Caleb at 20, when I handed him the keys to his first car, whispering, "Make me proud, son." Caleb last year, smiling at my husband's funeral, the only one who didn't shed a tear. And now Caleb, grown man, my son in every way but blood, watching as his wife pushed me into the abyss. The signs had been there, hadn't they? The papers they rushed me to sign after Robert's death. Just routine estate documents. The way Sabrina always insisted I looked tired at dinner parties, correcting my stories, telling guests I was confused. The sudden disappearance of my trusted accountant, replaced by someone Caleb called more efficient. I saw it all too late. Above the surface, muffled voices echoed as the yacht engine roared. They were leaving me to sink and rot under the weight of my own trust. Family. I had believed in it like scripture. I thought love, even adopted love, was stronger than greed. I thought wrong. The last thought before the cold claimed me was not of money, not of the empire Robert left behind, but of the lie I had lived with my whole life. That blood, or even the promise of family, was thicker than betrayal. And then, just as the darkness closed in, a harsh spotlight cut across the water. A voice, deep, commanding, human, broke through the silence. "Hold on, lady, hold on." Hands pulled me up rough and strong. The world spun, coughing, choking, shivering, but alive. I wasn't dead yet, and that meant one thing. They thought they had won, which gave me the one weapon they would never expect: time. The rough hands that pulled me from death belonged to a stranger with ocean in his veins. Luis Ramirez, 62, his face weathered by salt and storms, hauled me onto his fishing boat like I was one more catch of the night. "Holy hell, lady," he muttered, wrapping me in a blanket that smelled of brine and diesel. His teenage nephew, Mateo, stared wide-eyed, silent as the waves slapped against the hull. I could barely form words through the rattle of my teeth. My family, they tried." Lewis cut me off with a look that said he didn't need the rest of the sentence. He'd seen betrayal before. It was written across my shaking body. We didn't head to the Coast Guard. We didn't file a report because I begged him not to. "If they know I'm alive," I whispered, clutching his arm with fingers like claws, "they'll finish the job." Lewis studied me, his jaw tightening. Then he nodded once, the way men do when they've already made their decision. "All right, Senora, you're a ghost then, and ghosts don't sign police reports." He brought me not to a hospital, not to a station, but to a modest diner off a back road 20 miles from the marina. Teresa, his sister, ran the place. A sharp-eyed woman in her 60s with hands that never stopped moving, pouring coffee, wiping counters, slicing pie. The moment she saw me trembling in the doorway, hair still dripping like water onto her tile floor, she didn't ask questions. She just disappeared into the kitchen and returned with steaming soup. "Eat first," she said. "Explanations later." And for the first time since my husband's funeral, I felt something like safety. That night, in a borrowed nightgown, lying in a creaky bed above Teresa's diner, I stared at the ceiling and made a vow. If my son and his wife wanted me dead, then I would give them exactly what they thought they had. I would stay dead, because being dead gave me an advantage I had never known before. It made me invisible. It made me free. And from the shadows, I would build the one thing they never expected. A plan. Morning light spilled through the diner's thin curtains. I hadn't slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Caleb's smile, my son's smile, twisted into something unrecognizable. Louis slid a mug of coffee across the counter. "You gonna keep hiding, or you gonna fight back?" That was the thing. Hiding kept me alive, but fighting back, that could keep me whole. I asked Teresa for an old laptop she kept for bookkeeping. Password taped to the side, bless her. My hands shook as I typed Caleb's name, Sabrina's, searching public records, real estate transfers, anything. And then I found it buried in a PDF of utilities for my old home. My name. Whitfield Estate Project Phase 3. Phase 3. Me. I froze. There were scanned documents, too. Forged medical reports claiming I showed severe cognitive decline. Notes about episodes of confusion. Dates matched perfectly with the times Sabrina had oh so sweetly corrected me at dinners. They'd been documenting me, manufacturing evidence, but that wasn't all. One document wasn't signed by Caleb or Sabrina. It carried different initials, C. M. Attached was a timeline with cold, clinical language. Target shows increasing resistance. Recommend acceleration. Target, that's what I was now. A target in a business plan. Louis leaned over my shoulder, reading the notes. His jaw clenched. "They weren't acting alone," he said. This is organized." That night, while the diner's last customers left and Teresa stacked chairs, Louis called a man he trusted, Jordan Price, a retired FBI agent turned private investigator. A man who, as Louis put it, had made a career out of sniffing out snakes in suits. When Jordan arrived the next morning, trench coat, gray stubble, eyes sharp as knives, I laid out everything I had. He studied the documents silently, then tapped the initials. "C.M.," he said finally. "Clara Monroe, estate lawyer, very expensive, very discreet, and very dirty, if she's involved. This isn't just family betrayal. This is a business model." I felt my stomach drop. A business model? He nodded grimly. "She finds wealthy elders, convinces their families they are incompetent, accelerates the inheritance. Sometimes the old folks just get pushed aside legally. Sometimes," he paused, "sometimes they disappear." My blood turned colder than Lake Tahoe. This wasn't just Caleb and Sabrina's scheme. It was bigger, colder, systematic. And I wasn't just fighting for my life anymore. I was fighting to expose a machine built on silencing people like me. The truth was heavier than the water I'd nearly drowned in. My son wasn't just greedy. He was a willing pawn in a network that profited off the death of people like me. But grief has two choices, break you or sharpen you, and I had decided to sharpen. The diner became my war room. Every night, after Teresa locked the front door and wiped the counters, I spread out papers across the booths, bank statements, utility bills. emails Jordan had pulled from Caleb's so-called consulting firm. Each document was another nail in their coffin. Jordan taught me how to read between the lines, how forged wills never quite matched the original signatures, how medical reports always carried subtle inconsistencies. He showed me that the initials C.M. weren't just Clara Monroe's handwriting, but part of a trail she thought she'd buried. Lewis, meanwhile, worked his contacts at the marina. Word is, Caleb's yacht is docked again. He's been bragging about a new phase starting soon, he told me one night. His voice was calm, but his eyes carried fire. The decision to stay dead. I could have gone to the police right then, but Jordan shook his head. They'd bury this in paperwork, Eleanor. Monroe has people everywhere, judges, examiners, maybe even cops. If you show up alive now, they'll just adjust the plan. So I made the hardest choice of my life. I stayed dead. While the world mourned Eleanor Whitfield, tragic boating accident victim, I walked through shadows, invisible. I read my own obituary online, watched Sabrina fake tears for cameras, watched Caleb accept condolences like an actor taking a bow, and each time my resolve hardened. The first strike, psychological. We didn't start with arrests. We started with whispers. A single white envelope delivered to their lawyer's office, elegant stationery in my handwriting, just 7 words. Reports of my death are exaggerated. No name, no threats, just enough to plant a seed of terror in their greedy little empire, because fear makes people sloppy, and sloppy people make mistakes. As I sealed that envelope, I realized something extraordinary. The woman they tried to drown was gone. What rose from that lake was someone far more dangerous. A grandmother with nothing left to lose. The envelope landed like a ghost at their doorstep. Jordan's contact followed Sabrina into the downtown law office that morning. He told me later her face went sheet white the moment she unfolded the note. Caleb snatched it from her hands, scanning the words over and over, as if the paper itself might explain how a dead woman could still write. Reports of my death are exaggerated. That's all it took. By afternoon, they were on the phone nonstop. Lewis, working the docks, overheard Caleb snapping at a banker. Freeze nothing until I say so. Do you understand me? Nothing. Fear had cracked his polish, behind closed doors. Through Jordan's telephoto lens, we watched from a battered sedan as the couple stormed out of Clara Monroe's office. Sabrina's heels struck the pavement like gunfire. Caleb's face was blotched red with panic. "She's alive, Clara. She's alive," he shouted, the kind of slip a man makes when terror loosens his tongue. Clara, calm as ice, only adjusted her designer coat. "Then we make her dead again, this time permanently." Those words chilled me more than the lake ever had. The family cracks. That evening at the house that used to be mine, Caleb and Sabrina tore into each other. Through the tiny mic Carol, our inside ally, had planted under the mantle, I heard every venomous word. "You were supposed to push harder," Caleb raged. "You're the idiot who left her key in her drawer," Sabrina spat back. "I should have never listened to you, and I should have let you rot in debt without her money." The pretense of a united couple collapsed in a storm of blame. They thought they were alone. They had no idea every syllable was being recorded. The fatal call. By midnight, Sabrina's voice shook on a call Jordan traced. "She knows about the baby. She knows about Clara. We need the cleaner." The cleaner, not a maid, not a fix-it guy, a professional killer who specialized in making problems vanish like smoke. Lewis looked at me across Teresa's kitchen table as the recording ended. "They're not scared of losing the money anymore," he said softly. "They're scared of you." And in that moment, something fierce lit inside me. If my own son wanted me erased, then I'd let him try. Because I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was hunting. The night they thought they had me cornered, I walked back into the very house they'd stolen. Caleb opened the door, expecting fear. What he found instead was me, seated in Robert's old leather chair, calm, steady, alive. "Hello, darling," I said, hands folded neatly in my lap. "Miss me?" Sabrina's scream pierced the room. Caleb dropped his keys, his jaw working like a fish gasping on shore. Before they could gather themselves, Clara Monroe stepped in behind them, portfolio in hand. She froze at the sight of me, her mask slipping for the first time. "Well," she said smoothly, "the dead do have a way of being inconvenient. The trap springs, I didn't rise, I didn't need to. My words were sharper than knives. You forged my will, you bought a baby to legitimize your theft. You drugged me with lies about dementia and tried to drown me like garbage." Caleb stammered. Sabrina blustered. Clara only smirked. "Prove it," she said coolly. I reached behind the chair cushion, pulled out a slim black recorder and pressed play. Their voices filled the room, Caleb's rage, Sabrina's shrieks, Clara's instruction to make her dead again. Every filthy secret spilled into the open air. "You wanted proof," I said. "Now the whole world has it. The invasion, that was the cue. Doors shattered open, boots thundered across hardwood floors, and voices roared. 'FBI, don't move.' Agents stormed in from every direction, weapons raised, jackets flashing yellow letters. Clara bolted for the kitchen but didn't make it 6 steps before she was tackled to the ground. Caleb's face drained as handcuffs snapped around his wrists. Sabrina fought, spitting and cursing, but the agents dragged her away like a child throwing a tantrum. The moment of justice. Agent Jordan Price, no longer just a private investigator but an undercover federal agent, stepped into the room, nodding at me with something close to respect. "Well done, Mrs. Whitfield. She gave us 37 murders on tape plus 2 conspiracies in progress. We'll be cleaning this network out from Boston to D.C. I stood, my legs steady as stone. For the first time in weeks, I breathed without fear. "Then it's over," I said softly. Jordan shook his head. "No, for them it's over. For you, it's just beginning." I looked toward the hallway where Carol was cradling the baby, the child they'd planned to pass off as their heir. His eyes met mine, wide and unknowing. And in that moment, I understood. I hadn't just fought for survival. I'd fought for legacy. The courtroom smelled of old wood and iron justice. I sat in the front row, spine straight, watching the 2 people I once called family shuffle in chains. Caleb kept his head down, his suit wrinkled, eyes hollow. Sabrina still tried for poise, her hair perfect, but her voice cracked when the judge read the charges. Conspiracy to commit murder. Fraud, elder abuse, accessory to homicide. 25 years for him, 20 for her, no parole. Clara Monroe, the architect of so many accidents, received life without the possibility of release. When the gavel fell, I closed my eyes. Not in triumph, but in relief. Justice had finally spoken. The baby with 2 names. 3 months later, I stood before a different judge in family court, cradling the infant they once tried to use as a prop. His cheeks were soft, his tiny fingers curling around mine. "Mrs. Whitfield," the judge asked gently, "what name will he carry?" I looked at the child, then spoke through the lump in my throat. "His name will be Gabriel James Whitfield. Gabriel for the angel who delivers news. James for the father he will never know. And Whitfield because I will raise him with truth, not lies." The judge smiled. The gavel tapped once more, and just like that, a stolen life became family. 5 years later, I am 75 now. My hair is whiter, my steps slower. But every morning I wake to the sound of Gabriel's laughter as he runs through Teresa's kitchen, a toy plane buzzing in his hands. Louis still takes him out on the boat, teaching him how to tie knots and read the water. Teresa sneaks him extra pie slices when I'm not looking. And me, I tell him stories. Not fairy tales, real stories of courage, of betrayal, of survival. When he is old enough, he will know the truth, that his birth mother was deceived, that greed tried to shape his life, and that love, stubborn, unrelenting love, refused to let it happen. Closing voiceover. Family isn't who shares your blood. It isn't who takes your name. Family is who shows up when the world tries to drown you. Family is who holds you above the water when you're too weak to fight. I lost a son on Lake Tahoe, but I gained a grandson who reminds me every day why I chose to live. And in the end, maybe that's the greatest justice of all.